Hello, hello. We are back again for another Othering Thursday, and I'm joined once again by Tristan Zimmerman of Molten Sulfur Press, the Molten Sulfur blog, and we're going to talk about history. Tristan, welcome.
Matt, I am just absolutely delighted to be here as always.
You got like a little, you got your mic in hand today. Like I don't know what this is. This is new. You just pulled this out.
Yeah, so tell me if it doesn't work sound wise, but Sam Dunewald of the really phenomenal Dice Exploder podcast. I mean, if you're not all right, so total tangent to plug Dice Exploder. Dice Exploder is a podcast where every episode they have on an RPG designer to talk about a mechanic in someone else's game that they really,
Mm.
really like, and then break it down and why does it work. And so Sam Dunewald is the host. He's really, really smart guy. And he's also really good at, AV tech stuff. Like that is his big boy day job. And so he was like, we were figuring out the sound on a recent recording. He was like, no, just do this, Tristan. Like that will get you what you want. So I like to think that I am capable of listening to my betters. So this is what I'm doing now.
Great. I mean, it works. It works all right. You're a you don't gesticulate with your hands too much, but
And I'll just limit it to one hand now. It's
sure,
fine.
sure. Well, look, without that, that is a podcast that I have seen other people talk about, but I have never listened to an episode. So, we'll have to. I'll add it to my queue.
Your very long queue.
Oh, we're not gonna. Yeah, I got too many. I got too many. I'm trying to I I got too many, so I'm trying to f listen to a bunch of them so that I can finish them and then take them off of my queue rather than just not listen to them again. It's bad. It's a real problem. In the range of like all problems ever, it's not a problem, but within the world of like, man, I got a lot of podcasts I want to listen to. It's a problem. Uh, all right. Well, what we do here, if you this is the first time you've watched one of these episodes with Tristan, what we do is Tristan's blog, the Molten Sulfur blog, brings you stories from history, which you can put right into your role-playing game. So we've got a fun, interesting historical topic, and then also like some application of like how you can use it in your game. And this we talk about two of them that have come out in the last few months, and just talk through it. So you get the same information in this audio format, but also go read the blog post. They're linked in the this video description. So Tristan, what should we going to start with? What story we're going to start with? What's a story from history?
Yeah, so we're going to start with some weird chicanery in 1582 in Augsburg, Germany, where there were two calendars in use simultaneously, and this caused problems, capital P problems, in a way that I think is very gameable. So we start out in 1582, which is when a new calendar was rolled out by Pope Gregory the 13th. Now, folks at home may be familiar with, hey, we in the Western world, we currently use what's called the Gregorian calendar, and it replaced something called the Julian calendar. Um, and they are basically the same, almost but not quite the same calendar, right? Same month, same number of days in a month, same days of the week, all that stuff. But the deal is, we had been using the Julian calendar for well over 1,000 years, well
I
over a
mean,
thousand years.
it's Julian as in like Julius
Julius
Caesar.
Caesar, right?
Yeah,
Like
like
he's the
40
Julia.
famously stabbed in 44 BC
Yeah.
and didn't really say a Brute, but that's what everybody remembers, like that guy.
And the Julian calendar was really good. But the problem was that while the Julian calendar had leap years, it didn't do the leap years quite right. So by 1582, the Julian calendar had drifted. It had drifted by 10 days to where, of course, the stars, the sky, keeps its own calendar, right? year after year after year, the same stars appear in the sky at the same time. The equinox and the solstice, the equinoxes and the solstices fall very reliably. The sky remains unchanged. And the Julian calendar was supposed to be pegged to the sky. It was supposed to be pegged to the solar year. And it was drifting until by 1582, it was 10 days away from where it had been when it started. And this wound up causing issues. First off, obviously, it does mean that the seasons aren't quite the same as they were when the Julian calendar was laid down. But more importantly, it caused issues with the timing of religious festivals, most notably Easter. Because Easter is a spring festival, a spring holiday. Um, and with this drift, Easter was now sometimes falling just on the winter side of the astronomical winter spring divide. And this was a problem. It wasn't like a huge problem. It wasn't like a burn down the world over this problem, but like it was a problem and everybody knew about it. It wasn't this big secret and it was only going to get worse, right? And sure,
Right.
it was only going to get worse over the course of like centuries, but it was only going to get worse. And everybody knew that this was an issue and everybody who's educated, everybody who's paying attention knew that like, hey, at some point we're going to need to do something about this. And so in 1582, Pope Gregory the 13th announces that he's doing something about it. He announces the creation of a new calendar, the Gregorian calendar, which did things a little bit differently with leap years so that it would stop the shift, and more importantly, just moved the calendar by 10 days. Like he announces it in early 1582, and he announces, okay, in 1582, the date October 4th will not be followed by October 5th. It will be followed by October 15th. The dates October 5 through October 14 will simply not happen in the year 1582. And in so doing, he resets the calendar back to the way it's supposed to be in scare quotes. Well, of course, even though he is Pope, it's not like he can just like declare a new calendar thing and everybody says like well, okay, you're king calendar, right? You're calendar man from Batman, so you can just do this. No, the Gregorian calendar is initially implemented only in the papal states. That is the section of central Italy that the Pope governs directly, because he's the sovereign lord of the papal states in addition to being the pastor of the Roman Catholic Church. And So he implements it in the papal states and then just kind of leans on his allies in the broader Catholic world to say, guys, King of France, King of Spain, like you should just do my calendar because it's a better calendar. We all knew that we were going to have to make this change anyway at some point. Um, it's time to do it.
Well,
And
and I mean, I'm going to interrupt and say, kind of set you up here, but like, he might be the, claim to speak for all the Christians on earth, right? But like, this is post Luther, Martin Luther.
yeah,
We're in like, there's people who are ruling other countries who are like, we're not going to do what the Pope says.
yeah. So by this point, 1582, the Protestant Reformation has been going on for 65 years. And so that means that there are large swaths of Christian Europe who are not Catholic, and have no interest in the Pope's religious rulings. And this is the one of the things that I think is really interesting. Okay, cool. Religiously, they're not Catholic. They don't feel that the Pope has any special religious authority. Um, and in some cases feel the Pope is the literal Antichrist. Um, but it's not like the Pope is wrong, right?
About the
And
calendar, right? Yeah,
about the calendar, right?
yeah.
Like all these guys, like again, everybody knows, everybody who's educated, everybody's paying attention, understands that, like, yeah, this calendar thing is an issue. At some point, we're gonna have to make a change. And so, the Protestant luminaries of Europe have to get their heads together and say, all right, well, are we going to go along with this calendar change? Because it's a good change. Like we all agree it's a good change. But if we make the change, have we just like accepted papal authority in some way? Have we somehow just said like, oh, we're going to do what the Pope tells us, which we are not here for? And what they decide is no, the Protestant world will not adopt the Catholic calendar. Because it's a slippery slope, like right, the man that some Lutheran, some Protestants in this era feel is the Antichrist hands you a good calendar, like you still have to consider the source. Like maybe don't take the devil's calendar.
Right.
Um, so
Well, and I mean, I'm just it happened in the in Russia as well. Like they did not
yeah,
adopt the Gregorian calendar either, and they
yeah, for a
didn't
long time.
until 1917 when some other events overtook the Romanovs. But that's a topic for another time.
Which is actually why total tangent. That's why the October Revolution,
Mhm.
the communist revolution in Moscow, is called the October Revolution, even though it occurred in November.
Right.
It actually
Because it,
occurred in October
according
in
to
the
their
old
calendar.
Julian calendar.
Yeah.
So if you read a book about it today, it's like, oh, and then this happened in November, and then this happened in November, but it's called the October Revolution. Anyway, we move our attention now to the city of Augsburg in Germany. And Augsburg is in an interesting place because Augsburg is a religiously mixed city. About 40% of the population is Catholic, and about 60% of the population is Lutheran, which is the largest of the Protestant denominations during this period. And certainly the by far the largest Protestant denomination in Germany. And Germany, through the Protestant Reformation, is consistently riven by horrific wars of religion. I mean, just awful wars where Catholics and Protestants made just terrible war upon one another. It was a bad scene. But Augsburg managed to stay out of those for the most part. And Augsburg managed to have a population that was religiously mixed while still maintaining the peace. There was actually even a major church in Augsburg that on Sundays would do both Protestant and Catholic religious services in the same building, not in the same room, but in the same building. And things were working fine in Augsburg. They managed to keep the peace, and that was great until this calendar thing, because now all of a sudden Augsburg has to pick a side, right? The decision whether or not to adopt this calendar is taking a side, and the city fathers of Augsburg decide, you know what? This is a good calendar. Let's take the new Gregorian calendar. Let's adopt it. So cool. Um, that decides things for the 40% of the population that's Catholic. And that also decides things for the majority of the Protestant population who are just kind of go along to get along, as most human beings are. But what about the particularly pious Lutherans in Augsburg? Are they going to go along with this calendar change? And they decide, no, we're not going to take the Pope's calendar. We, the pious Lutherans of Augsburg, we're going to keep the Julian calendar. And so now you have two calendars running side by side. And this creates problems. For one, there's the question of the Sabbath. You're not supposed to work on Sundays. Well, what day is Sunday? Because the two calendars are off by 10 days. 10 is not a multiple of 7. They feel that Sunday is on different days. If you go around to a store and you're like, "Hello, I would like to buy something from you, please." Well, that store might not be open because for them it's Sunday. They're on a different calendar than you are. Um, and the labor force, the labor force on big civic projects. You've got workers who are not showing up to work because they're on a different calendar. And like, no, it's Sunday. I don't work on this day. Um, there was an incident in 1583 when it came to, okay, when is Lent over?
Mhm.
Also, when is the market day, right? If the market day is every Wednesday or whatever, like what day is the market? And when it came to determining the end of Lent, pious Catholics and pious Lutherans abstain from meat during Lent. So for Catholics, Lent ended 10 days early. earlier than for the Lutherans, they show up to the butchers saying, "Hello, please slaughter a cow for me. I am going to eat meat now." Well, the butchers in Augsburg were almost all Lutherans, and so the butchers were saying, "No, it's still Lent. I am not going to, risk my immortal soul by slaughtering a cow for you. Go away." So this is creating a problem. Like this is creating social issues in a city that prides itself on not having social issues about this. And a city, in fact, that makes a bunch of money. Augsburg is a banking city, and Augsburg has made a lot of money by not having picked a side in the Protestant Catholic divide. So the bankers
Yeah.
can do business with both sides.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and then fast forward to June 1584, Lutheran minister Georg Mueller um, announces that he's in charge of the Lutheran resistance to the Gregorian calendar and that every Lutheran should reject the Gregorian calendar. And he even publishes a pamphlet arguing that
They love
citizens
to publish pamphlets in the Germanies. So many pamphlets.
so many pamphlets. Yeah, he publishes a pamphlet, a very Protestant thing to do, arguing that citizens have the right to overthrow their governments. Um, well, Augsburg is what's called an imperial city. Augsburg doesn't have a local, duke or count or whatever. Augsburg reports directly to the Holy Roman Emperor. And you'll be shocked to learn that the Holy Roman Emperor, whose title has emperor in it, does not agree that citizens can just overthrow their governments because they feel like it. So the city council of Augsburg has to get rid of this guy. They have to get rid of Georg Mueller. And so they meet in secret and they're like, all right, we're gonna, in the middle of the night, we're gonna go arrest this guy and we're gonna hustle him out of the city. We're not gonna like cut his head off or anything. We're just gonna banish him real quick, real quiet before anybody knows about it. But word leaks. And Georg Mueller organizes a mob. The mob besieges the council house. The council's be like, it was taken out of context. We're definitely not trying to banish Georg Mueller. So there's like this riot, and then once the riot is over, they banish him anyway, right? So Mueller doesn't actually buy himself any time, but the presence of the riot fundamentally changes things, because as far as the city council is concerned, this is no longer a calendar issue. This is a rule of law issue,
Yeah.
because the Julian calendar people have rioted and threatened the legal and civic authority of the council. um Anybody who keeps the old calendar is arguably guilty of treason. um and so they start up basically a secret police to punish calendar infractions. And they'll send people they're paying people to spy on their neighbors, to be like, hey, it's the Gregorian Sabbath. Peek in the windows of your neighbor. Are they secretly doing work inside their house? Because that means they're on the Julian calendar and we'll fine them. And I believe it's, you get a couple of fines and then potentially you get banished from the city. If you're a repeat infraction, like, okay, go around to all the big civic work sites on the Julian Sabbath and make sure that people are actually working, right? If anybody's malingering because they say, oh, it's actually the Sabbath, like, no, they get a fine. And so there's this giant there's this giant inspection presence. Like, it becomes a matter of legal authority to like find the people who are on the Julian calendar and punish them until they comply, which is wild, but I can see how they got here. Anyway, that's the situation that I think is super gameable. Is the two calendars and a calendar secret police.
Uh, yeah. It does seem, it almost seems like something from one of those like I mean, obviously you've laid out exactly the history of how it happened and stuff like that, but it's one of those, farce of bureaucracy kind of
Yeah.
things that you might see in Brazil or some other movie or media where they're making a commentary on police states by like making the issue very like the butter battle book from Dr. Seuss, right? I mean, it's like which side of the bread do you butter your butter on is or which side do you butter your toast is like the central conflict between this in this Cold War analogy children's book. But so yeah, it seems like one of those things, but it is also sort of like It's all the other stuff that has gone along with it that you've talked about.
Yeah, yeah. So I just think it's super gameable, and the way, in particular, I think that it is most gameable in a fantasy RPG because in a fantasy RPG you can do nonsense with magic. And in particular, what you can do, and actually, circle back. I'll just mention the excellent time travel time cop RPG Time Watch by Kevin Culp. Incorporates this calendar divide by time machines can't actually travel to the dates October 5th through October 14th, 1582, because those are the dates that don't exist. So, like, bad time travel guys will hide in that 10-day span or in that 9-day span um, to hide from the player characters. Anyway, so you can have time travel magic. And in particular, what I would recommend is you have a shitty little wizard who has figured out how to be able to change which calendar he's on. So if he is on the Julian calendar, he can cast a spell real quick and change to the Gregorian calendar, which means he teleports 10 days into the future. And if he's on the Gregorian calendar, he can cast a little spell real quick and teleport to go back to the Julian calendar, which means he teleports 10 days back in time. So at any moment, he gets to choose. He has time travel, but it's really limited, right? If he's gone 10 days back in time, he can't go another 10 days back. And if he's gone 10 days forward in time, he can't go another 10 days forward. And the timeline does continue to advance. So, like, today we're recording on August 1st. So on October 1st rather.
October 1st.
So if he was
We've
here, he
gone
gets
back
to choose.
in time 2 months.
We're on October 1st in the Gregorian calendar. He gets to choose whether he wants to be living in October 1st or September 21st. But tomorrow, his only choices will be October 2nd or September 22nd.
Right.
And so what I would do, what I would make an adventure about this guy is first off, you have to get the player characters emotionally invested in this calendar nonsense, right? You always want to have your players emotionally invested because that way they care, they get passionate. Like, that's how people have a good time, is when they're emotionally invested. And the way I would do it is get one calendar side angry at the party, right? Get the fan club of one of the two calendars angry at the party. And the way you would do that is, oh, it's shopping day. The players are going out, they're buying their arrows, their rations, their potions of healing. Great. Turns out this shopping day is a totally permissible work day for the calendar that the authorities are a fan of, but it's a non-work day for the calendar that the sainted resistance, the self-righteous resistance is a fan of. For their calendar, it's not a work day. So when the party's going out to go shopping, they're approached by some seedy little weirdo from the secret police who's like, hey, let me know if you encounter any shops that look like they're open, but they're not actually open. There's money in it for you if you tell me who's secretly using the bad calendar, the calendar the authorities don't like. And cool, honestly, that guy's a hilarious NPC. I would love that NPC. But and then the next shop that the players walk into, well, it turns out that shop is using the Julian calendar, or the calendar that the saintly self-righteous resistance prefers. They're not actually open. They look open, but they're not actually open. Great. Now the players, just like the good people of Augsburg, have to take a side. Do you report this place to the secret police or do you not? And whichever choice you make, one side's going to get mad at you, right? If you choose not to report them, well, it turns out that the shifty little weirdo, he was watching you the whole time. Now he
It's a
knows
test for
that.
you.
Exactly. Now he knows that you're on Team Julian calendar, you bastard. So now the authorities are mad at you. Or if you do report it, well, you just informed on the saintly resistance to the tyrannical authorities. So now the saintly resistance is mad at you. And, cool. When people are mad at the party, now the party has a dog in the fight. Now the party's like, we hate those guys.
I
Very
just
fun.
wanted to top up my quiver of flame arrows. What is happening?
And now I've inadvertently been forced to pick a side in a calendar dispute. Oh my God. Anyway, so now you've got your like grubby little time wizard who's using his time powers to rob people. That's how he makes his escape. So he's on the Julian calendar and he sneaks up to the players. Uh, he's in the version where he can still teleport 10 days forward. That's the calendar he's on. And he sneaks up to the players and steals some like valuable thing from them, right? He steals the MacGuffin. He steals the magic item that they really need, that they really care about. He steals it from them. And then just like bam, teleports 10 days into the future. Or excuse me, no. He teleports 10 days into the past. He teleports 10 days into the past to get away. He's in the Gregorian calendar when he starts out. He teleports 10 days into the past. Um, and cool, what the heck just happened? So now the party goes around, they talk to people. Any reasonable actions that they take turns up like, oh, this guy's a time wizard. Like this is his thing, is that he teleports back and forth,
It's just
which means that they know exactly where he was 10 days ago because he only moves in time. He doesn't move in space. So cool, he appeared right where he robbed us. He appeared there 10 days ago. With that knowledge, you should be able to trace his movements, right? Talk to people who saw him appear. Okay, where did he go next? Oh, he went to ground over here, blah blah blah. You should be able to follow him through the city, figure out what he did over those 10 days, catch up with him in the present. When you catch up with him, he's 10 days older than you are because he's lived that set of 10 days a second time, but you can catch up with him. And then you've got him, right? Well, maybe, call for some rolls. See if they actually got him. If they get him, great, awesome. You get him, you get your MacGuffin back, you get your magic item back. If you roll badly, or if your plan to grab him wasn't great, well, he teleports again, but he can't teleport 10 days back into the past again. He's already in the Julian calendar. He has to go into the Gregorian calendar. So he teleports 10 days into the future. Now the party, as long as they're thinking, they've got him because cool, he's not going to be around for the next 10 days, but they know exactly where he's going to be exactly 10 days from now because he only moves in time, not in space. So as long as they make sure that they're present in this exact same spot 10 days from now, they can grab him, they can take the MacGuffin. But of course, they angered either the tyrannical authorities or the saintly resistance who want them to leave town. So now you've got to deal with that faction who's trying to kick you out of town, trying to expel you from town during those 10 days. So maybe you leave town, you try to sneak back in 10 days from now. Maybe you try to find a way to go to ground for 10 days. It's a whole thing. What I really like about this, time travel stories are really fun, but they're a devil and a half to keep track of, and they always include weird plot holes. That's like, wait a minute, what about X? And the answer about what about X is, well, we wanted to tell this other story, so don't worry about X.
right.
What I like about this silly little time travel spell with the two calendars is that the time travel powers are very simple. And as long as you can keep straight, as I was not able to while introducing this idea, as long as you can keep straight which calendar the guy can go back on, and really you don't even have to think about it that way. All you have to keep track of is, did he just go back in time or did he just go forward in time? Because the next
Right.
time he casts the spell, he goes the other direction. As long as you can keep track of that, that's all you have to keep track of, right? It's pretty straightforward. Which means that it's a lot easier for the players to keep track of. The players can make informed decisions. And yeah, that's I think the gameable aspects of this absolutely ridiculous calendar feud.
Uh, and it just occurs to me like there are other solutions, right? You talked about like having to be in the same place, but there's like, I guess if you have a lot of characters who want to like talk to the local authorities and like pull in some favors or whatever, you could get maybe tomorrow declared 9 days from now so that he suddenly appears on your timetable and like it's a special dispensation for like like, and you get into like ideas of intercal. You talked about a little bit about like the time watch. You can't go to these 9 days, but like intercalary days are like a thing in other. There are none in the Julian or Gregorian calendars, but there are other calendar traditions that have like this is not a day. Like it is a day, but it is not part of the calendar. It is a gap day, and you get to do whatever you want. And that's usually like the Boxing Day thing where like the servants get to sit in the comfy chair and the master brings the tea or whatever. that sort of thing that everything is upset because it's not really a calendar day, and so like
I, I would argue it's not technically an intercalary day. I never know how to pronounce that word. I'm sorry. But kind of in practice, we do have an intercalary week. Intercalary? Looked like you were about to correct me, so maybe you know
no
how to pronounce it. Um,
it is a difficult word to say, but yes,
it's the
continue with
week
the
it's the week between Christmas and New Year's.
yeah,
Where like a lot of jobs, either in tech, the jobs will just straight up shut down, right? Like don't come to work, there will be no one here.
yeah,
But like jobs that have paid time off, everybody and their brother takes paid time off through that week. Even if they don't take the whole week, they take enough of the week that, like, if you do go into the office, there's not enough people there that you can actually get any work done.
right.
Like, what day even is it as you, like, lounge on your couch in a turkey infused stupor?
Sure. I mean,
Like,
this is how it
we
was.
have them. We have them.
I mean, like I know it mostly from like the Mayan calendar, which has 360 days, and then they have 5 days that are not part of the year, and then you do whatever you want on those 5 days because they're not part of the year. Like, I mean, so they knew how long they knew that they needed 365 days, but also it's so much more pleasantly mathematical to have 360 days for divisions into even numbers and stuff like that. So they just had 5 days that are not part of the year, and then
Just
that's
fudge the math.
yeah, it's for laying around in a stupor and chilling out like in between the years, like exactly what you're just talking about. That is sort of like our equivalent. But anyway, I only bring that up because like there is sort of like other maybe cultural solutions to this 10 days forward, 10 days back time problem that if you wanted to get into those things for
Yeah.
fun, I don't know.
Which absolutely you should, right? Like I'm the world's biggest believer in if the players decide that they want to solve the problem like this, and like, oh geez, I can see how that could work. Let's roll with it, right? Like absolutely. I love that as soon as you were presented with this issue, it's like, yeah, Tristan thinks you might solve it like this. Let's solve it like this. Like, yes, perfect. That is exactly what you want from an adventure, from an RPG adventure.
Great. I'm going to use my astral navigation skill, which I've never gotten an attempt to use. And I'm going to ask if there's any solar eclipses coming out here soon so that we can prove what day it actually is. Um, yeah, I don't know. Uh, all right. Anything else to wrap up with the city of the War of Two Calendars, the Battle of Two Calendars?
No, I think I've covered everything that I wanted to say about it.
Excellent. Well, let's move on to the next story from history. And this is, if I think this is like part of your long-running series of PCs on the Battlefield series. Is that correct? This one?
No, so we talked we did you and I believe we did a PCs on the battlefield about these like Greek mercenaries
Yeah.
trying to kill the Emperor of Persia. And this is continuing their story, but
Okay.
it's no longer PCs on the battlefield. It's
Okay.
now PCs doing archaeology.
Which is almost as fun.
Yeah, yeah, just different kind of fun. Um, so yeah, to get listeners up to speed, this is following these Greek mercenaries in 401 to 400 BC. 10,000 Greek mercenaries had been hired by the brother of the Emperor of Persia, the King of Persia, the Shah of Persia, whatever title you want to use. Um, Hired by his brother to participate in a civil war. And unfortunately for these 10,000 Greek mercenaries, their side lost. And now they find themselves in the middle of the Persian Empire, right? Like close to Babylon, they're in Mesopotamia, they're in modern day Iraq. They are so far from home,
Yeah.
and they are in the middle of an empire where they just tried to overthrow the emperor. So, and also they just like the battle they were in, they won their part of the battle, but the battle overall was lost, which means that the enemy army is right there, right? Like it's here. And they have to get home. and the story of them trying to get home and ultimately successfully, depending on your definitions, getting home. Um, it was documented by one of these mercenaries, a young man. He was a young man at the time. Eventually, got older, as young men do if they are lucky. Um, and he later wrote it down. He's a guy by the name of Xenophon. He wrote it down as a history of the Anabasis. And we're going to talk today about these really interesting little moments in the Anabasis where Xenophon writes about archaeology, because the the place where the battle happened is in Mesopotamia, modern day Iraq, near Babylon. This is the cradle of civilization. Um, it is old, right? Like, humans have been living and maintaining cities and building cities and farming and doing all the civilization stuff for thousands of years, thousands and thousands and thousands of years, right here. This is a place not only where, even in the ancient world, there were already archaeologists digging up even more ancient cities to do archaeology on them. This is a place where, by the time these 10,000 Greek mercenaries are walking around in 400 BC, those original archaeologists are themselves already ancient. This this place is old as balls. And so you've got these Greek hayseeds from a part of the world that is not old as balls. And they're marching through Mesopotamia, and they're marching north. They're going to try to get out by way of the Black Sea. They're going to march north into what is today Turkey. Um, and they are encountering ruins, right? They're encountering ruins of much older cities. And the way that these guys, the way Xenophon in particular, reacts to these ruins is, I think, fascinating and incredibly gameable. So Xenophon, like, his work, his Anabasis, and get in the comments and tell me I mispronounce it so that I can know. But his Anabasis, like, it's not a travel diary, right? He's not like, oh, and then we saw this thing, like, oh, and then we crested this hill, and let me tell you how beautiful it was. Like, there are classical Greek historians who do write like that. Xenophon is not one of them. He is not devoting time to, the cool sights that he saw along the way. And yet, despite that, he takes the time to write about some of the ruins that they encounter, which to me, and it's almost unique in the Anabasis, which to me indicates that these ruins left a profound impression upon him, right? That, like, truly jaw-dropping experience to encounter ruined cities. And the greatest of these cities that he encountered was a city of Nimrud. And Nimrud had been the capital of the Assyrian Empire from 880 to 715 BC. So we're talking 300 years before the 10,000 march through here. Um, the Assyrians, they call the city Kalu. The Bible calls it Kala. But important to note here, some quick history about the Assyrians. So the Assyrian Empire was conquered by a group called the Medes, Medes, and their Median Empire. And then the Median Empire didn't last very long. It was pretty quickly overthrown from within by a group called the Persians, and they founded the Persian Empire. Um, and so the city of Nimrud, um, first of all, when Xenophon is marching past it, he doesn't take the army inside, but what he sees is the wall is around the city is still standing. And he describes the wall 100 feet high, 25 feet thick. Its perimeter is 6 miles long. It goes 6 miles around the city. There's at one corner of the city, there's this ziggurat. The ziggurat is 100 feet wide. It's 200 feet high. I used the same hand gesture for both. It's 200 feet high. It's 100 feet wide. It's kind of a tall, skinny thing. Um, it's and like it's just it's like this ruin is like nothing that he's ever seen. And he reports that there's people standing on top of the ziggurat, like watching the 10,000 go past. Xenophon says, "Oh, these are people who fled their farms to get out of the way of the army." But he never went in the city, so he doesn't know for sure. And we do know from modern archaeology that at the time that Xenophon was marching through, there were people living in the ruins, right? There were people living in the city at that time. Um, and so it could have been those people, right? Climb up on the ziggurat to get a good view of this wild thing. But Xenophon takes the time to record a story of how the Persians took Nimrod from the Medes. So presumably he heard the story from a local. But we don't know because he doesn't cite his sources. It's just not a thing that very many people were doing at the time. And the Persians apparently they had put the city to siege, this great ruin. They put it to siege because it was still a city. There were still people living there, and they weren't able to take the city until the god Helios laid a cloud upon it. And the fog of this cloud was so thick that the people in the city couldn't stand it and they just left. Like, this is unacceptable. We're leaving now. We're walking out. They left their own city, and that's how the Persians took the city. Well, of course, this wasn't Helios, who's a Greek god. Nobody in Nimrud at the time knew about Helios, but it was a standard Greek and later Roman practice to take foreign gods and give them Greek names. Right, and so presumably Helios, the guy who drives the chariot of the sun, presumably this is some other sun god, perhaps Mithra, a Persian sun god, who also has the power to bring moisture. So somebody told him, "Oh, Mithra did this," and Xenophon's like, "Ah, yes, Helios. I know Helios."
Which one?
Um,
Which one is Mithra? God of the sun. Oh, right, Helios.
yes. And just as a quick note, I will note while Nimrud is not currently inhabited today, the site still exists, sort of. There are still Assyrians living near Nimrud. They're mostly Christians, and as a consequence, when ISIS controlled the area, the people around Nimrud suffered just absolutely terribly. And ISIS bulldozed most of the historical site, including the ziggurat. At the time they bulldozed it, the ziggurat was basically just a giant pile of sand as it kind of eroded down, but they bulldozed it anyway. Um, I'll get to the gameability of that in a minute. Besides the obvious gameability of like, yeah, cool ruin, make the players go into the cool ruin, invite the players to go in there. Anyway, the other kind of ruined city was Nineveh, which was the Assyrian capital until 612 BC, so 200 years. The Assyrian capital moved. But it was at one point the largest city in the world. Xenophon just says that it was deserted when he marched past. And he mentions a citadel beside the city, which I think is super cool. Abandoned citadel outside an abandoned city, incredibly gameable, perfect. And that the city walls here were 50 feet thick and 150 feet tall, so even bigger
Yeah,
than the
yeah,
walls
even
at
bigger.
Nimrud. And that the lower 50 feet were dressed stone, and the upper 150 feet are brick. And I think that's just an incredible detail. But Xenophon has a cool story for how the Persians took Nineveh too. He says that one of the wives of the king of the Medes fled to the city while the Persians were conquering the empire of the Medes. Um, Xenophon gives her name as Medea, which is just a really interesting detail. I can't tell whether Xenophon means the Medea, like the Medea from Jason and the Argonauts, the Medea from Greek myth, who is a witch who rides in a chariot pulled by dragons, and is a tragic figure who kills her own children. There were some classical Greek traditions that associated Medea with the Medes. The classical Greeks, oh, they were crazy for words that sounded like one another. If
Right, I
two
was gonna
words
say
sounded
that
like one another,
clearly Medea is the queen of all the Medes. Like
exactly.
it's got the same first three sounds.
Um, so anyway, I don't know if Xenophon believed she was the same Medea, but cool thing anyway. But anyway, the Persians they put Nineveh to siege. They just can't take the city. They can't take the city. They can't. Medea's in there, and they just can't take the city until Zeus himself comes down and renders the inhabitants thunderstruck. Now, the Greek word here is ambiguous. It has two meanings. Um, it could mean that Zeus hit the people in Nineveh with lightning, and so they died. Or it could mean that he made the loud noise of thunder at them and they went insane. Technically, it also could mean that he did both of them to them if he was real vindictive. Um, and so probably he's repeating a story that he got from a Mesopotamian source about a Mesopotamian god or a Persian sky god or something, which of course he's just like, yeah, sky god
Must
does
be
lightning,
Zeus.
does thunder, Zeus, I know this guy. And then our final ruin here, just real brief, is a wall that was constructed during the early 500s BC by Babylonians to deter raids by the Medes, because the Medes would raid south into Babylonian territory. The Babylonians were sick of it, so they just erected like a big old wall along the northern edge of their territory. Like, yeah, go around. We don't like you.
Right.
Um, and he for a brief bit the 10,000 march along this wall. Xenophon says that it was 20 feet thick and 100 feet high, mostly brick, but laid on a bed of asphalt. We do know from parts of the wall that have survived that most of the wall was not this tall, was not built to the specification. So it's possible that the bit that Xenophon marched along um, was just like special, right? Was a special part of the wall. We don't think that he just misremembered, because it is pretty clear when you look at his writing that he took notes when he was young, and then that he was working from those notes when he was older. But anyway, so you got this cool wall, and hey, ancient ruined wall, great stuff. Um,
I mean,
but
all of this is so. I mean, it leans. What it makes me think of is like Lovecraft and his like ancient cities in the desert, and like they're full of the ghosts of past civilizations who knew too much and like got into. They delved too deeply, right? I mean, I delved too deeply. I mean, that's Tolkien, and all of the Moria is empty of all of the dwarves who built it, and it's full of monsters now. And I mean, these are this sort of like actual experiences echo in literature throughout the centuries, right? The idea that I mean, even the idea, like the word cyclopean masonry that is used to describe the Greeks' own ancestors, the Mycenaean Greeks, they built big walls and their own descendants didn't understand how it could be done. And so there's a very just on a very general level, this idea of ancient cities and like the people who inhabited them must have been different than us, or the current inhabitants are somehow related or shadows of the lost civilization. These are tropes that are in fantasy literature and history making, down to the day, like from Xenophon on down, and probably backwards from Xenophon. I mean, like you said, there were archaeologists working on in these cities before. So anyway, I mean, that's just my first reaction to all this is like this is just these are the origins of these kinds of tropes, I think, for modern storytelling.
yeah, I absolutely agree. I'm also a big fan of course, any good GM knows that theft is a really important part of GMing, right? Like steal widely and do you can cover your tracks if you want to or not. Your players probably aren't going to notice anyway. Like just steal, right? Steal from the
Right,
good
right,
stuff.
right.
And of course, every author is also doing that. But one of the interesting things about stealing from previous authors is it changes as it gets stolen, right? So as each person changes it a little bit. So if it's an older concept, the version that you're familiar with is stolen from someone who stole it from someone who stole it from someone who stole it from someone. And usually if you go back to the original is like a lot cooler than the current stuff because it hasn't been diluted, right?
Yeah.
And so I can
Or made into some sort of racist hagiography where it's like this clearly was a white city that is
yes.
now like, that shows up also in like Congo and lost Solomon's mines and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's a lot of literature that takes this in a bad way. So go backwards beyond,
Yeah, so go
go
backwards.
before the 19th century racism.
And, I don't know this for a fact, but I would certainly assume that Tolkien had read Xenophon probably as a boy. It was very hip as kind of boys' adventure fiction when he was a young man. And like parts of it are legit, still great boys' adventure fiction. Honestly, parts of it are pretty boring, but the good stuff is really good. Anyway, like yeah,
Yeah, I'm putting this on my reading list. I want to read the Xenophon's whole account.
but like, yeah, ruins are great. They're incredibly gameable. Like, steal from the old stuff. Steal from, keep going back in time to find, older sources of people being like, wow, ruins are cool. Like, yeah, they are cool. And, steal from them. Steal from their cool stuff. Um, the Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say this touches on more than just the ruins because you've told the stories about
Yeah.
like the explanation. Like not only are these particular cities that Xenophon remembered cool old ruins with cool old temples and cool old towers and big thick walls. I mean, they also he's collecting these stories of like explanations of how they got ruined, right? I mean, they were victims of war, but how I mean, in some respects, it's almost like it's sort of like patting the Greeks on the back or reassuring the Greeks, like, look, I went over there and I saw this giant city, and clearly the Medes built it in their, the ancient, like those people over there, they could build these gigantic cities, but don't worry, no one could take such a city unless it was a god, and so like, and it was our gods who destroyed these cities, so like we're still somehow better than these people who, there is like a weird nationalism or tied up in there at least a little bit, right? That like these foreign cities were destroyed by our gods in some
I
respects.
I wouldn't necessarily look at it that way.
Yeah. Okay.
The Greek and later Roman views on divinity were deeply syncretic. For folks at home who aren't familiar with syncretism, that is the idea that um, these two religious traditions are basically the same thing. For example, a modern example of syncretism, a lot of Haitian voodoo is, hey, look at this West African Orisha, and then look at this Catholic saint. Like they have a lot of the same characteristics. Probably they're the same being, right? And so we're just gonna like yeah, it's the same thing. We're gonna incorporate elements of both into our worship and good to go. And the Greeks and Romans were very much into this, right? They would encounter foreign deities and in the process of saying, oh, this is clearly Mercury. It's not a like at least they didn't see it as, oh, you idiots, you don't know about your own gods. Let me tell you about our gods. Your fake god is really our real god. Rather, it was, no, no, it's the same god. Like, we're worshiping the same dude. Like, I'm with you, man. This guy you built this temple to, like, he's a real dude. He's really active around here. He's the real thing. I just happen to know him by a different name,
Yeah.
but he's definitely like, your guy is my guy. And I'm going to talk about him with like Mercury because that's the name I'm familiar with. And so, while I'm sure for some people there was an element of cultural imperialism. Generally speaking, this the Greek world, the Roman world, and to the by Xenophon's time, the Eastern Mediterranean world was a pretty syncretic environment, um, and there's a whole world of especially Hellenistic syncretism that's
Right. I
super
mean,
duper 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 cool. But I
when
would not
is
necessarily see that.
when is Xenophon like the use of 400
Yeah.
BCE? So like I
So
mean it's
Xen
all about to be replaced with Alexander's empire anyway, which was like
Yep.
a gigantic project of syncretism and
Hmm.
all of
Yeah,
that.
Xenophon was writing between the Peloponnesian War and the conquests of Alexander, which was why there were 10,000 mercenaries hanging around to accept a contract because the Peloponnesian War had wrapped up, and you had a bunch of dudes who were just like, soldiering is the only profession I know. Like, this war was so long, I don't really even know how to be a farmer. Like, I came of age as a soldier. Well, they got wars over in Persia. All right, here we go. But anyway, the way I would game the bit with the names of the gods is, you're in a ruin, or you don't even have to attach it to a ruin-based adventure, but you hear about a story involving a deity or something like that, but by an unfamiliar name. And in order to figure it out, you have to figure out what name this deity by.
Hmm.
We're like, oh, we're in this foreign land, and here's a puzzle or whatever, and we have to figure out which god to propitiate. Well, we know how to propitiate the gods. We're good at propitiating the gods, but like it says that it's Mithra. I don't know who Mithra is. Like, okay, well, let's go talk to some people. Let's go on an adventure to figure out that, oh, Mithra is Helios. Okay, cool. Well, we know how to propitiate Helios. Now the broader campaign can continue. Or, hey, we found this ancient scroll, the MacGuffin. The MacGuffin is hidden in the city, sacred to, Magubliet. Like, okay, well, who's Magubliet? Like, there's only so many gods. We're confident we know this guy just by a different name. Like, oh, he's Zeus. Okay, cool. We did a little adventure to figure out that Magubliet is Zeus. Well, the city sacred to Zeus is going to be such and such city, Olympia. So okay, we're going to go to Olympia to look for the MacGuffin, and that's kind of, it's not a huge thing, but I think it's a fun little bit of like bringing the world to life by like,
Yeah.
no, it's the same gods. They know them by different names, or they knew them by different names in the past, and let's just fold that in and make that part of the adventure.
Yeah, I think it's one of those like things that seems to be ripe for like a spotlight moment for whichever character you have that is got divine powers or divine
Hmm.
connection, and they have to do almost like I can almost imagine like the way I would GM that is sort of like you just kind of, okay, this is your scene to spotlight. How do you figure it out? And then like that
Hmm.
character, that player gets to describe how their character does whatever it is, like whether they want to describe it as some prayers or they want to like burn various incenses and see which one goes upwards and the other ones don't go up because they're not the right incense. They could describe whatever they want. That like test of which god is this, or this process of figuring out which god, it sort of gives them the chance to add a bunch of detail about how their character works. I don't know. That's just, I don't know. Wait, but you're right. It's like a small moment, but it's like having those moments give those to the players for them to get to role play
To
their
really
character,
shine.
right?
Yeah. Also, I will mention another way that, like, hey, here's this cool story about how this ruin got to be a ruin. Is the process by which it was ruined. Is hopefully like still buried in the ruin somewhere, right? Like, oh, here's Zeus's thunderbolt. Here's Mithra's cloud of making clouds appear. Like, great. After the ruination, the people who still live there, they found the artifact that was their downfall. They're like, "Mm, we're going to make sure nobody can ever use this against us again. Let's go bury it in the secret place." And like, cool, great. Now that's treasure. So that's really fun.
Yeah.
Um,
Or it's like, that there's like, I mean, again, depending on the exact nature of your game or whatever, you're like, all right, well, if Zeus threw a whole he threw a whole bunch of lightning bolts down here, like they didn't all strike someone, so there's got to be like unexploded ordnance, quote unquote, somewhere in the city. So you're like going to do this careful exploration, like find some like, we've recovered this divine lightning bolt that hasn't yet been expended, and now like we have a certain like we've got one big weapon to throw at our enemies, because we found one of these unexploded lightning bolts. Or I
I
don't know.
love that. I
That
love the idea of like you have this cool story about how the ruin got to be ruined, and rather than like one super special artifact, it's just like, yeah, no, there's just a bunch of unexploded ordnance around, but
Yeah,
like,
I mean, he
great,
threw he
harvest it.
threw thousands and thousands of there were thousands of people here. They didn't like he's a god, but he didn't strike every blow perfectly.
Yeah, I love that. That's super duper fun. And then, oh man, one of my favorite things in adventure design is doing a push your luck mechanic. Where
Mm.
like, okay, you've gone into the ruin. The ruin is very dangerous. It's full of monsters. It's full of traps. It's full of the people who still live here who keep the traps up because they don't like it when people come into their ruins. So it's dangerous to be here. Oh, great. You've explored some. You found a lightning bolt. Terrific. There's going to be more lightning bolts here. do you want to stay in the ruins? Do you
Mhm.
want to push further? How many lightning bolts is enough? And then you could just kind of keep dangling. Oh, but one more lightning bolt, one more lightning bolt. And it's like, at some point, the players are going to say, like, guys, we have 16 lightning bolts. It's enough. We're all
Yeah.
at one hit point. Like, let's flee these ruins. Yeah, but wouldn't you like just want, ooh, this guy you just talked to, he said that there's a treasure trove of 5 lightning bolts up ahead. Like, surely that's worth rolling the dice on. I love doing that. I love doing that. My players they might even be sick of me doing that with them by this point, where they're like, they've gotten decently good at saying no. We know what Tristan is doing. We know we have enough. Like, we're going home. It's like, really? Because I've got this really cool encounter in the next room. Like, no, Tristan, enough is enough. We know what you're doing to us. I love it.
Uh, all right. Well, we kind of spitballed on that one for a bit. Is there any other details about the Xenophon and the ruins that he reported that you want to make sure we hit before we begin to wrap up this conversation?
So I'll mention one last detail, and I've left it to the end because it really has nothing to do with anything else, right? Like, we've done this whole thing about the ruins and the stories, and like, I think that's all fabulous. And then we got this one little detail from Xenophon during the same portion of the Anabasis, that I think is just so cool that I can't not mention it, even though, again, it's totally unrelated to everything else, which is sling stones. So the 10,000 had some archers with them, I believe, but mostly what they had were slingers, people with, kind of like a David and Goliath sort of sling, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
a strap of leather that you put a ball in and you spin it around and you whoosh, and something that a lot of folks don't realize is that in the ancient world, um, particularly in the kind of pre-Roman ancient world, slings were king, right? Slings were much more dangerous than bows and arrows in most circumstances. And one of the things that made slings so dangerous is that, in particular, the Greeks used lead slingshot. They weren't using like pebbles or whatever, like we commonly imagine in kind of a David and Goliath children's storybook Bible context. They were melting down lead to make lead bullets and then flinging that. And ancient slingers were famously accurate, like, they were super duper accurate. And when you've got something with the density of lead, you can really huck that sucker. I mean, it goes really far. That slingers with lead sling stones could outrange archers with bows and arrows. And that thing can crack a wooden shield. If that thing hits you on the head, like, that's it. It's over for you. If it hits you in the arm, great. Now your arm is broken. So slingers were really effective at like softening up an enemy force, right? Break some shields, break some arms. That way, when it actually gets to melee combat, things go a lot better for your side. Um, and one of the things that the 10,000 were doing as they were marching through Mesopotamia, is they had to live off the land, right? They were deep in enemy territory. They were, stealing grain from people in order to stay fed. And they were also stealing lead. So when they were marching along the river and there were people with fishing nets, well, those fishing nets, they had lead weights to keep them weighted down. Cool, we're commandeering all of your fishing nets. We don't care about the net part, we care about the lead. And they were melting down all of this lead that they were stealing to make slingshot. And the Persians, we know from other sources, before the March to the 10,000, the Persians were still using stone slingshot. But around this moment, Persians switch over to using lead slingshot, which is, again, much, much more effective than stone. And so it's perfectly reasonable to suppose that they learned it from the 10,000, that in the process of facing the 10,000 and their slingers over and over again, they're like, oh man, lead, we should be using lead in our slings. And so lead then for the 10,000 was a form of treasure as they were moving through and plundering. And like, cool, you can make lead be treasure that appears in your ruins. It's like, oh, great news, guys. We found a gutter right? It's made of lead. Oh, yes, the gutter. Perfect. Oh, the thing we've been looking for, the gutter on the side of this house. Amazing. They used lead because it was easy to work. And now we can melt it down and make a bunch of very dangerous sling stones. And I think that's super fun. Obviously it's incredibly setting dependent, right? It's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
going to
yeah.
work in all, RPG settings, but like if it does work, I just think it's fabulous.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're playing a campaign where you're trying to, it's kind of a campaign of where attrition like that of resources and like tight control or you're actually having them keep track of their rations because that's the story you're telling. Like, yeah, like incredibly mundane things that usually are hand waved become like the thing to pay attention to, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah, something like Band of Blades from Evil Hat. I think it would be a fun detail. For all I know, they have it in Band of Blades. I have not read Band of Blades. I just know the premise. Um, but yeah, anyway, like I said, totally unrelated to anything else that we have talked about. It was too cool of a detail not to bring up. Oh, and I should mention, since I mentioned it for Nimrod, that ISIS also
Oh,
destroyed
yeah.
most of the ruins of Nineveh during their occupation of Mosul. So, end on a downer, I guess.
Well, yeah, I mean, I- what can you say? What can you say? It's
Matt,
there's
is ISIS bad?
I think I they certainly had a, particular MO related to their ideology,
Matt
results in
Orr
a lot
going
of
out of his way not to say ISIS is bad. You heard it here first, folks.
yeah. Uh, uh, mostly I'm responding to the way in which our own imperialist nation has dibbled its fingers in that part of the world and created probably legitimate anger. Now, like methods of redressing that anger, I don't support necessarily, but like it's kind of like you know, we fought 20 years of war over in that part of the world, and we weren't really invited there either. So
I mean,
that's
we were invited by the democratically elected government of Iraq to fight ISIS specifically.
Well, right, but I'm that happened after the thing that I'm
Yes.
complaining about.
Yes.
But yes, you are correct about that. That's the only reason I hedge my bets. I don't know. Yeah, bad times, and it's there's plenty of blame to go around, is what I'm saying. Gosh. All right. Tristan, where can people read these blog posts if they want to hear more, or they want to read in detail, see some links, see some photos you've found to go with these stories? Where can all that happen? And what else can they find about you on the internet?
So, if you go to moltensulfur.com, you can read my Molten Sulfur blog, where every month I put up a post about something really cool from real history or folklore, talk about it, and then talk about how you can use it at the gaming table in the campaign that you were already running. I have a bunch of RPGs, and the one that I'm plugging currently is Ballad Hunters, which will be going to Kickstarter in March. Ballad Hunters is a game about singing and fighting magical folk ballads in England and Scotland in the year 1813. You can read more about it. Um, well, the best place to read about it is a blog post on the Pelgrane Press website, which you can find by Googling. And you can sign up to be notified of the Kickstarter at moltensulfur.com by signing up for the mailing list. So get excited.
Yeah, this is the follow up to your any award-winning Shanty Hunters. Same, same verse or second verse, same as the first in some respects, right? But
Yeah,
not like
in
you were
some
telling me
respects, second verse
before.
same as the first, but also a bunch of really cool mechanical developments. If you like Shanty Hunters, you're gonna love Ballad Hunters because it's even better.
Excellent, excellent. Looking forward to it. Tristan, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for taking us through these stories from history and speculating with me about how to put them on the tabletop. It's always a pleasure. We'll see you around once more before the end of the year, I think.
Yes, delighted to be here as always, Matt.